Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle.
Point guard, quarterback, setter. What these positions all have in common is that the ball always goes through their hands. This adds a layer of responsibility that few athletes must deal with. In this third edition of the Top 10 series, where we rank every position in volleyball, we look at one of the most unique positions in all of sports, the setter. A big reason for Germany's stellar performance in the European Championships in 2017 and the World Championships in 2014 was the distribution skills of setter Lukas Kampa. Even though he didn't have the setting wizardry of some of the other players on this list, he still benefits his teams with physical play and leadership. His club team, Jastrzębski Węgiel, is making some serious additions next year, with players like Julian Liniel, Christian Fromm, and David Konarski. I don't really have too much more to say about Lukas Kampa, other that he seems like a fantastic guy and a great setter.
Nothing that Berlin could do about that.
It's pretty easy to be forgotten as a setter when your hitters include guys like Sreko Lizanac, Uroš Kovačević, and Alexander Atanasijević. But Nikola Jovovic doesn't get enough credit when Serbia succeeds in international play. He can pull off a lot of the unique skills possessed by some of the other top setters in the world, albeit at a lower level. The two-handed dumps of Taniuti, the tight setting of Decheko, and the off-the-net shoots of TJ Sanders are just a few of the moves he has in his arsenal. The ability to read and react to a wide range of situations makes him a versatile player. A couple of things hold him back from the top tiers, however. Jovovic isn't much of an athlete. He's slow to get to the ball and chase down passes, and he relies on his height to contact the ball rather than his jump. Serbia has struggled recently, and Jovovic is partly to blame. The World Championships is the perfect time to get things back on track. Canada has burst onto the volleyball scene the last couple of years, with high finishes at all international events and a deep, if not superstar-filled roster. Arguably the biggest reason for their success is the play of setter Tyler James Sanders. Hailing from London, no, not that London, the one in Ontario, TJ was a slow burner, bouncing around in lower tier leagues and teams before starting to gain recognition around 2016. He has improved considerably every year, adding elements to his game and climbing through the ranks of Team Canada and professional clubs. Every middle who plays with TJ improves significantly. Ever heard of Lucas van Berkel or Arthur Schwark? Despite being kind of mediocre in their club play, when they are paired up with TJ, they become beasts. And Graham Vigrass, who is a beast already, becomes unstoppable. He can find the middle from anywhere in front of the attack line and put it right in the pocket. There are lofty expectations for Sanders and the rest of the Canadians at the World Championships. TJ must play very well if they are not going to disappoint.
Impressive thing about Sanders is that he just loves using the middle. There's a space.
Among the three Russian setters that are among the top in the world, by that I mean Grankin, Butko, and Kovalev, Butko is number one. He is another part of the legendary Zenit Kazan team that has ravaged the Champions League for the better part of this decade. You could argue that it's not that hard to set up players like Wilfredo Leon, Maxim Mikhailov, and Matt Anderson, but there's a reason why the best Russian club has chosen Butko to be their starting setter. He has very few weaknesses. He's a strong blocker, consistent jump server, and is great at getting his attackers into a rhythm. Despite all his greatness, he could have a limited impact in the World Championships this fall. Not because of his play, but considering that him, Igor Kliuka, and Dmitry Muzersky were all not born in Russia, and the FIVB has a limit of 2 foreign-born players on the court at once. Butko might be the least flashy player on this list, but in my opinion, consistency has become a bit underrated in this new era of setters.
The first second ball on the final point of the match.
I imagine this ranking could be a little controversial, as Said Maruf seems to inspire some strong opinions one way or the other. A lot of people think the Iranian is right up there among the top setters in the world. I believe he's in a tier below. If there's one thing we can agree on about Maruf, however, is that he's an entertaining player to watch. You never know when he's going to dump it on the second contact, and he has a way of hiding his intentions that sometimes even fools his own teammates. He can make digs that 80% of liberos couldn't hope for, and Iran has been among the best dozen teams in the world recently, and a big part of that is due to the orchestration and leadership of Maruf. There are a couple of drawbacks keeping him out of the top 5, however. While he completes most of his unconventional and spectacular sets, he is still prone to making more errors than more traditional setters on the list. And as he gets older, his height becomes more and more of a limitation as a blocker. He will still be a huge asset to both Iran and his new club in the Italian Super League, Emma via Siena, next year.
Wonderful serve by Maruf that Keveshov didn't deal with.
As setters get taller and more athletic, one setter does the opposite. At only 6 feet tall, Ben Taniudi may be average than the taller French guy, but he is the smallest player on any of our lists, obviously not including libero. The fact that he is still one of the most effective setters in the world is mind-blowing. Taniudi is technically pretty much perfect, rarely missing the mark with his hitters, even on suboptimal passes. His back row defending results in a lot of extra opportunities for Zaxa, his club team, and France, especially on errant passes that he can quickly chase down. Unfortunately, height is a crucial factor in volleyball, and despite being a smart blocker, Taniudi cannot effectively slow down big, athletic hitters. Even with a good vertical, you just can't slow down outsides who are hitting at close to 12 feet when you're half that height. That being said, his skills compensate to a large extent, and I really don't think there's much of a difference between him and the next 3 players on this list. DeCheco holds a special place in my heart because he played in the first professional match that I've ever seen live. I saw things that day that I didn't know setters were capable of. Even in the present, he continues to impress fans of Argentina and Perugia, with clever setting and the most stoic poker face in volleyball. He is one of the toughest setters to read in the sport, disguising his intentions until the last possible second to get his hitters a single or a no block. And his trademark one-arm dump to the bucket is a threat that opponents have to respect. After 8 years of play in Italy's top division, he finally won the championship this season with Perugia, and next year's team could be even more of a threat with Alfredo Leon joining them. Argentina really suffered his absence and their abysmal 14th place performance in the most recent Nations League, where Maximilian Cavana had to start instead of him. They'll be looking forward to having him back in the World Championships.
Marco Podrasciani con in palleggio Danasiewicz che veniva ancora per Osmani Mantorena e aspetta prima di attaccare quel pallone. DeCheco con il primo tempo di Marco Podrasciani.
Some of you might consider it too early to lift Simone Gianelli into the upper echelon of setters, but why should we penalize a player for being so good, so young? He already has a resume, both with his club team Trentino and with the Italian national team, and his play speaks for itself. His almost 6'7" height makes him an imposing blocker, and he picks up a lot of balls in the back row for someone his size. He's as good with one hand as he is with two, able to find the opposite hitter or tip to positions 2 or 4 on tight sets. Hard to believe he just turned 22, considering that it seems like he's been a top player forever. Especially at a position like setter, which typically has a later peak. And the dude has 240,000 Instagram followers. Only like 100 times more than me. Not that I'm jealous or anything.
Absolutely stunning set from Gianelli. One-handed reverse to Zaitsev.
I'm pretty sure Bruno was born with a volleyball in his hand. He's the son of former Brazilian national team coach Bernardo and player Vera Massa. So there's no doubt he's been getting elite volleyball training for all 33 years of his life. And it really shows on the volleyball court. Bruno has masterful control over the ball in every situation, and a seemingly telepathic connection with certain attackers like Lucas Satkamp and Irvin Engapet. He spent the first part of his career learning from fellow Brazilian setters like William Arjona and Marcelinho, but he's really come into his own over the last few years with this current generation of Brazilian volleyball players. He will have his work cut out for him at the World Championships, with both starting outsides for Brazil injured. But if there's anything Bruno is good at, it is getting the absolute most from all his hitters. But even for Bruno, making Victor Cardoso into a star could be a tough task.
That point came from Bruno's set. He really accelerated it, and it was so fast that even on a short distance,
Honorable mentions at setter include Grzegorz Lomaj and Fabian Drzyja on the Polish national team, and William Arjona, or El Mago, of Brazil. The poster boy for this new era of tall, athletic, dynamic setters, Micah Christensen takes the top spot on this list at only 25 years old. And despite little agreement about the position of the 4 setters below him, all rankers had Micah at either number 1 or number 2. It is just so rare to have this height, athleticism, coordination, and the mental acuity required to be a setter all in the same body. Getting recruited to one of the top clubs in pro volleyball right out of college only happens to the best athletes in North America. And Micah didn't just play in the top club, he excelled, with top 3 finishes in the Italian League and Champions League in all of his seasons so far. His ability to find middles from anywhere on the floor and set precise balls to the back row means that his teams often have team hitting percentages well over 50. In fact, Lube Civitanova led the entire Super League this year with 54% hitting this past season. And his back row sets to Taylor Sander are one of the prettiest things to watch in volleyball. Micah has big shoes to fill on the American national team after Loy Ball, but if things continue the way they are, he is well on his way to becoming one of the greatest setters in our sport. Thanks for watching, everyone. This is one of the hardest videos to make rankings for because there's just not a lot of information about setters on there. You can't really rely on stats. You really just have to watch a ton of volleyball. If you like this video and want to see the rest of the top 10s, remember to subscribe. And if you haven't checked them out already, check the videos out for top 10 opposites and top 10 outsides. Up next are the 5-1 volleyball rankings of the top 10 middles in volleyball.